This is the Lew Rockwell Show.
What an honor this morning to have as our guest Dr. Ron Paul. Congressman Paul is, of course, the leader of the freedom movement. He's the great exponent of sound money, of free markets, of international peace, and has been for decades. If there were a modern Demosthenes searching with his lantern in Washington for one honest man, he'd actually find him, and that would be Ron Paul, author of many books, most recently End the Fed. Ron, thanks so much for coming on the show, and I want to talk to you today about something that everybody is interested in. What the heck are these creeps in Washington doing to the audit of the Fed?
You know, it's amazing. I think it was yesterday morning, which would have been Thursday morning. There were two headlines. One, the audit bill was defeated. Ron Paul's audit bill was defeated. Then another headline said, the Senate accepts the audit bill.
I saw that.
But the truth is we're making slight headway, but I would say the greatest headway is with the American people becoming aware of the fact that the Federal Reserve is very, very important, not only in causing our troubles, but compounding our problems, and they do it in secrecy, and that's where we have the great victory. We have had token victories, I think, coming out of the conference committee in some change in law, at least on the surface, that the Fed would be required to do this and that and give us more information. But the fact that the Fed has accepted this language, which was literally written by the Fed, I understand the Fed has a lot of influence with the committee people in on the majority side in the House. So that's where this stuff gets written. So you know if the Fed has agreed to it, you can't expect an audit. This will not provide for an audit, what I think will finally pass. But if we got everything they say we can get, we would get more information. We would get the names of the companies that got the money and got the bailout. But it exempted the foreign transactions, and the delays were very long. Barney put in the bill that he called the compromise. Some of the material would be laid for 3 years, and there are some loopholes that are getting around there. These lending facilities that they set up where they literally transact hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars worth of activity, they don't have, under what probably is going to get passed, is they don't have to give us any information until those facilities are closed. And or they don't have a transaction for a year. So they could spend $1 trillion and then the next year just have one little transaction, so they wouldn't have any obligation to close it. And I think there's a lot of room for mischief, but I think what we have to do is make the most use of what we have. But actually, the very best thing coming of this is probably a generation of individuals now looking and studying, and thanks to the work of the Mises Institute, they have a place to go. And you might even comment on it, but my guess is that maybe Murray Rothbard might be more popular around this country than he's ever been before.
Well, that's true, and it's same with Mises and Hazlitt and all the other great economists who wrote about the money issue. And, of course, it was the money issue that inspired you to run for Congress originally. You've been concerned about this. All the things that you've talked about are, of course, coming true. But for the first time, ever since you ran for president, we absolutely have millions of young people, and not only in this country, who know that the Federal Reserve is ripping them off. Therefore, they're interested in it. And that has an effect even in Washington. But there is absolutely a tidal wave of interest in what the Fed is doing to us. They're finagling in Europe, which you keep pointing out about, and of course they're wanting to keep secret. So it's wonderful.
And the audit business does look backwards, and that is very important. But ultimately, the collapse of the system, and that's what we're witnessing right now. The financial system is very, very shaky, and the dollar system is very, very shaky because it's continuously being devalued against gold, and gold is the ultimate measurement of all the currencies. Maybe someday it'll change, but it hasn't changed in 6,000 years, so I still think it's the best measurement of the dollar's or any currency's value. But I think we will soon be talking about, well, okay, you guys are against the Fed. You want the Fed audit, and the Fed caused this and that. But I think now we need to really concentrate on what do we do? How do we go from where we are? Can we have a gradual transition? Do we have to wait until total runaway inflation? And I've always been interested in trying to devise a system, or, at least a system that you could transfer into gradually. And that's why I sort of like that Hayekian idea of competing currencies. But that's a major step, legalizing freedom of choice in anything, let alone in currencies, because notoriously over the many centuries, governments want absolute control of the money.
You know, Ron, even in a practical basis, you're so right to concentrate on this, because a gold standard, or let alone private gold money, requires some explanation. It requires some reading, and it requires some knowledge, and people are more and more interested in these topics. But I find that if you say to somebody, why shouldn't competition be legalized in currencies, they think, well, gee, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just immediately seems to the average person, anyway, like
it's
the right thing to do.
It's not threatening either. It's not like, let's say we want private post offices. We don't have to close the post office down tomorrow. Besides, it does have some legal authority to it. But just legalize, competition in delivery of first-class mail and let the chips fall where they may. But we could do that, and I think if we always have a loophole, we can survive. And that's why we work so hard on that mandate, eliminating the mandate on medical care. If you eliminate the mandate and forcing everybody into it and maybe still permitting you to get out of the system, same way with education. It's when they come down heavy on us and say you can't even educate your kids at home or have home or private schools, then that's it. And that's why if we could just get these loopholes open, I think the opposition, those who are in charge now, will self-destruct, and they're on the verge of it. I mean, we don't have to eliminate the Fed overnight because they're going to eliminate their authority anyway because their policies are not workable. And I think that's why so many people are very much aware of what's happening today, because they can see the failure not only of the monetary system but the welfare state and the warfare state too.
You know, I'm always struck by, towards the end of the Hitler regime, there was just vast infighting among all the various sub-officials as to who was going to have the power, even though they had to know that we're talking about mere months away before they're all going to be killed, yet they're struggling bitter hate over this power. So here's the Fed getting even more power over the banks, actually not over the banks, to empower the banks in this new regulatory scheme, yet the economy is being hollowed out at the same time. We have, not only this vast warfare state, which is entirely anti-productive, we have the government taking over more and more of the economy. The system is got a natural end date to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think they're getting a little bit worried about it, because I think the attacks on those of us who try to argue the case for sound money, that you're hearing it more in the establishment. These guys are crazy. They have to discredit us and say that this is foolishness, but I think truth wins out in the end. I mean, we can get beat up along the way, and we can ignore it for a long time, but I just really believe in the end they will fail, which will make our ideas look even more popular.
Right. I noticed they're even bringing back the old Bank for International Settlements involving some of these bailouts in Europe, and of course we have what's happened into the euro, Greece, Spain, Italy, Ireland, all the rest of these debt-maniacs. What do you see happening there? Is that also part and parcel of why the gold price is going up in terms of the euro, too?
Yeah, I think so. I think people realize that everybody's insolvent. And I guess you may have seen, I'm sure you have seen, where just recently they said that people who actually wanted to buy a gold ounce in Greece, they had to pay $1,700 in the U.S. dollars. So that's where the real price is. I think people are frightened. And they're still clinging to the hope that the dollar will rescue everybody. And it's the dollar and the treasury bill where people are still parking a lot of money, but less so. And that's why they now are moving into real money, which is gold. And as we speak, it's at record highs right now. But it isn't the price of gold that counts. It is the confidence in the currency, which is being diminished. And all these bankruptcies. I mean, we did all this with the Fed and the Congress bailing out the system a couple of years ago, but all they did was transfer the debt to somebody else, like the American taxpayer. It cannot be sustained. The cities are broke, the states are broke, countries are broke, and the U.S. government is broke. And every single day, more and more people become aware of this. So I still think it's a small number of people who are aware of this, or the panic would be just horrendous. But that's when a significant number recognizes this, then there's a panic out of the currency. The end stages of a currency goes rather rapidly. You wonder why, common sense tells us there's nothing. The dollar is worth nothing. It's just a piece of paper, but the confidence is still there. But when the confidence is misplaced, then you can expect a calamity, and I think we're fast approaching that.
Ron, you've always been interested in the whole question of moral hazard, and although very few people are talking about this except you, the first Bush administration put a $75 million liability lid on any accidents in the Gulf from deep drilling. And I notice our media is not exactly investigating who did that, who promoted it, and so forth. But that on the margin, of course, leads people to be less careful and to so as a result, we got this oil spill.
Yeah, it's sort of an insurance policy. They say, oh, okay, we can take a little bit more risk for an oil company. $75 million isn't all that bad. I think they just subconsciously, they probably don't say, oh, I can do this and explosion won't be a big deal. Yeah. I don't think they're that callous. But they do get subconsciously at least less concerned because they have that insurance there. It's the same way you take flood insurance on our coast. That's a big issue, has been in my district for a long time, and it's coming up again right now because it needs refunded. But, they give this insurance, and it's delusional. They say, oh, okay, the government will take care of us, so what do? We build right up on the beaches and all, and then the floods come, and then the government says, oh, we don't want you building there anymore unless we tell you, so you lose control of your land. So it is a moral hazard to us in the broad sense of the term that you do things differently and you sacrifice too much, you're deceived into believing something. My biggest beef about the moral hazard and this insurance that government provides is that it's no longer insurance. I get so disturbed by them calling this government insurance. It's not insurance. I mean, medical insurance, when you get paid to go to the emergency room for an aspirin or a headache or something, that's not insurance. That's prepaid medical care, and it's not measuring risk. And there is insurance in medicine. That is, if you get hurt in a car accident or if you need surgery, insurance companies could measure that. But to call, the first dollar spent in medical care as insurance is so deceptive. And it's a political ploy, say, oh, all we're doing is making sure poor people can have insurance, and then they wonder why the prices go up.
No, and of course, this misuse of the term insurance, a wonderful market and necessary market development, was by Otto von Bismarck, the rotten welfare warfare statist in Germany, then picked up by Franklin Roosevelt for Social Security, and then, of course, later on for Medicare, Medicaid, and now the Obama plan, and for this for the flood insurance. And as you say, none of it actually is insurance. It's just the government stealing a word from the market to cover up a redistribution spending program.
Yeah, and then the insurance companies participate in it. They're selling these policies. They're the middlemen, and they're not even measuring, risk. They don't have to do that anymore. They just are the middlemen, and customers have to go there. So it's a form of fascism. What it is, it's not quite. Somebody got after me once for not calling Obama a socialist. He might be every bit of a national socialist or something, but he really is a corporatist, and which many believe corporatism, if not held in check, will go into a fascist type system. But it's a partnership between government and big corporations, and if you look at this administration, they're every bit as bad as the previous administration. It's taking care of the big corporations. Look at the military-industrial complex. How these guys, play games with each other. It just goes on, but the bankruptcy will finally change all that.
And I'm sure you were shocked the other day to find out that there were a lot of very valuable mineral resources in Afghanistan.
Oh, yeah. When I saw that, I said, "Oh, I cannot believe it." So, but and you think they didn't know about it, but we always knew about the plan and the desire to use it for a route for a gas pipeline.
That's right.
Through Afghanistan. But do you think I could explain the reason why they dropped going after Osama bin Laden once he left Afghanistan? Theoretically, they were supposed to go capture him, but that became irrelevant. The next thing became occupation and control, and how do we pick the next president of Afghanistan, and on and on. So it was minerals in Afghanistan and oil in Iraq, I guess.
No, and I remember when George W. Bush told the truth by mistake and said, well, really, it didn't matter whether Osama bin Laden was captured or not, because, of course, that's not why they were there.
But I think somebody, in a sarcastic manner said that they probably made a deal. Bush needs him and he needs Bush. As long as Bush is there doing these things, invading these countries, that's a good recruitment tool. And as long as Bush has Osama bin Laden out there, he can rally the American people to, do anything and give up all their liberties to fight the global war on terrorism, because we've got to go after this guy.
Ron, one last question. I noticed a very interesting poll a couple days ago showing that independents wanted you to run for president. And I noticed a poll that happened just maybe a couple of weeks before that showed you running almost neck and neck with Obama. And of course, the independent thing showed that you were overwhelmingly the choice of independent voters, that Romney and Palin and Pawlenty and the rest of the neocon midgets all very far behind. So I know that this is maybe a little soon to even be mentioning this, but do you find this interesting?
Well, I do, and it really doesn't surprise me, nor does it surprise me that many of the Republican primary-type voters are less excited about me than some of the others, because I am challenging them, and they're annoyed, especially if I can take the positions that we hold in the freedom movement, say, well, the Republican Party actually has in the past, and even now will give lip service to this, but they don't do it. So I think that's a little bit of an embarrassment. But no, the independents sounds like they're very important block of voters these days, because they're growing by leaps and bounds. When states where you can register as an independent, those numbers are growing. So no, I think it in many ways makes me feel good about it that that our freedom idea is very appealing to them. That means they're looking for something different than the status quo of the Republicans and the Democrats.
Well, Ron Paul, thanks for all you have done, you're doing, and you're going to do for the freedom movement, and it's great to have you on the show, as always, and an honor.
Thank you, Lew.
You've been listening to The Lew Rockwell Show, produced by LewRockwell.com, the best-read libertarian website in the world. If you'd like to advertise on this podcast or on the website, email advertising LewRockwell.com. And thanks for listening.